Oh, I want to make a video on the subject of having more choice, the perception of having more choice. So generally speaking, we all like to have choice. Oh, I'm going to cut myself because I want to have more control over my life. But generally speaking, we have this distress and I want control, I want control, I want control. I don't want to be insane. It's about I want to be in control to maintain my sanity so I know that I have control over my situation. But to a certain extent, within that, we want to know that we don't have as much control. We want to know we're subservient to a certain extent. Because with all the control, sometimes with so much power, people don't know what to do with it, right? So with so much power, people don't really know how to make decisions. Ultimate power corrupts perfectly, or something along those lines, right? Absolutely. And to a certain extent, your possibilities there, and if you were there for an infinite number of years, the chance would obviously come up where that possibility could happen. But that's not necessarily the case for a reasonable expectation of what we know to exist right now, and there's no forever. So there's going to be a person that exists for a few billion years. It's just the perception, this illusion, this delusion we're going to live forever. It ain't going to happen. Sorry, it's not going to happen. But for a few billion years, I'm sure there's a guy that can maintain his or her own integrity for as long as they have to, until they die after 2 billion years when the universe ends. I mean, there's no infinite blah blah blah. Who cares? No, that doesn't exist. So yeah, it's to a certain extent the mere choice. The more you have of the more choice you have, to a certain extent, leads to more distress, more futility. It lets the futility show as much as you really, to a certain extent, as much futility as there is. Because to a certain extent, I think the choice of this matter comes more psychologically. The more choice you have to recognize what's really going on, the more it seems futile. The more choice you have to do what you want, the more choice, it's generally speaking, it's a conclusion you come to once you realize all the choice that you've had, really psychologically, the choice of viewing things a certain way. It can lead to a perception that life is futile, and the more you think about the choices you made, the open-endedness of having the choice, I guess can be a deceiver in a way. Um, um, so yeah, the more choice you have to a certain extent, um, you can perceive, okay, I can do this or I do this, and it can lead to some frustration too. I can do all of these things, I can choose this or that, the other thing, but I guess it leads you to realize all these little things, I can make all these choices, but it's up to me to make the choice. And that means all these other things are going to go away. If I have to make one choice between these 20 different things, to choose one. And it makes you realize just how futile it is because you're just going to say, to heck with it with the other 19 options, so I can do them tomorrow. So it shows you just how futile it is. If it's not important to do today, why even bother doing it today? And generally speaking, obviously you can do it tomorrow, but it shows how futile it is once you realize I'm just going to predicate that tomorrow because I'm going to get the more important thing done today and I have to do something tomorrow. And that tomorrow thing is less important than today's event. I'm trying to find a way to describe. And then you realize you're just getting less and less important as the days go on. And I guess maybe it's an illusion to make it seem that way, but not really, because the more choice you have, generally speaking, you don't know what to do with the choices you have, and you end up just letting it get to you. And I guess that's a good way of causing insanity, or having no choice. Being stuck in a white room, having no choice but to sit there, can lead to all sorts of inability to realize beyond a certain point. Um, so yeah, I mean, being stuck in a white room, you're given no choice. So I guess that can cause insanity itself. So having no choices or too many choices. It's about having the right number of choices. I guess is a good way of describing it. Um, so, um, so yeah, I guess to a certain extent you can have too little choice. You want to be right, you want to be subservient to a certain degree, but not too much. Because if you're too subservient, or you just I want to know that I'm controlled, I want to know Big Brother's watching me so much, or whatever it is, to feel like you're being pathed along in a maze more closely, more tightly, that they're closing the walls of the maze more, so that you sort of have to squeeze through as opposed to giving you room to walk around, or even giving you the ability to walk up and view the maze, giving you more choice. The ability to even walk up and look at the maze is giving you more choice to view the maze, and it really lets you recognize the choice of psychologically understanding existence around you can be the thing that I guess you can describe as the futile nature of existence, and having that choice to recognize it gives you that point. But recognizing outside of that, once you've recognized that, looking at choice and looking back at it, you can say, yes, the more choices I had, the more I realized I couldn't make a decision. I don't know which one to choose. Obviously, one can stick out, but it makes, I guess, in a certain sense, it can make you realize just how few things are that important. Because you had to choose one, and there's 20 other things that you just wipe off that aren't quite as important. So you had more choices to choose, A through Z. Which one are you going to choose? And you choose one, and the other ones are just thrown away. And I guess that's a good way of showing you, I mean, subconsciously understanding exactly why things can seem more futile the more choice you have, or the very little choice you have. You're in a straitjacket, you're staring at a white wall, you're going to go insane. You're going to start imagining things happening on the white wall. You're going to go insane. You're not going to be thinking as straight as you can. You're going to be entirely controlled by your internal mechanism. You're not going to be able to think, be outside of it, and it causes all sorts of negative side effects of insanity. Only having so little stimulus to recognize what's entirely going on, losing concept of time. And there's only so much you can do to control the circumstances. So yeah, the mere choice you have, the more choices you have, the more choice you have, the more futile it seems, especially especially indecision. Again, that's a good way of describing indecision. You can't make up your mind. It can be frustrating not being able to make up your mind. I guess that's more psychological. It's something to think about. Being frustrated with not being able to make up your mind up can make you realize the mechanism of making a choice can be very frustrating. You're constantly making these choices, and when depending on how many choices you have or the difficulty of the choice, you can be very indecisive and recognizing that there's a lot of choices you're going to have to make, and the more choices you have to make, and the more things are in those choices, the more things you have to choose from, and how difficult the choices can make you realize just how much a life is a choice, to a certain extent, that you're making these decisions, and some of them are based on you. You're the one pushing the button, either green or red, or green, red, blue, yellow, green, whatever it is. You're choosing something to a certain extent. It can make you realize just how much of life is a choice to a certain extent, either A, B, or A, B, C, D, however you want to contrive it. But, just contriving with either 2 buttons or 10 buttons. How many different things you have to choose from. Okay, you save this person, or you have 10 people and you have to choose 1 or 2 people, and it's one of those things that we more accurately describe it, at least as using it as a more practical example, like A, B, C, D. You have 10 people to choose. Which one do you choose? And every room you walk into, you have to make a decision about which one you're going to save. And you can look at it that way to make it more understandable, more physical, something you can more understand physically, and describe into a more realistic, practical circumstance to reality. So yes, the more choice you have, the more futile it seems, especially in indecision. The more choice, too few choice. But choice is existence, and that's exactly what's happening. Existence is deprivation, having sentient feelings, and there's only so much you can do to take away from those feelings and experiences. So the more choices you have, it can lead to a recognition of futility, because the more choices you have, generally speaking, psychologically, it means the more time you have to think or recognize the choice that you were given to be able to recognize what existence is, looking outside the maze, the ability to move around and, jump back and forth, wall run, get up the maze wall, and see exactly what's going on. The choice to allow you to do that. And just because sometimes it's really just about the choice, because you have this choice. Whatever choice means at this point, you have this choice, and you just happen to land on the right choice the first time. The right choice was recognizing exactly what reality is and what's happening in reality. And sometimes it's just about the choice as opposed to the amount of choices, and that's what I mean. I guess it depends on the circumstances, and the circumstances that create your circumstance and allow you to come to that realization, at least the realization that can lead to saying that something like choices, or how many options are on choices that can lead to something such as recognition or discomfort with the recognition of futility in existence based on something like the amount of choices, or like a contrivance like this. So, it can lead into all sorts of things. A delusion that the choice means, and obviously there's no choice. Things are going to happen, but obviously through your mind, indecision, choosing something A or B, do I go or don't I go? Those kinds of things can mean something to a certain extent. So I think that's really all I want to say. I mean, I really, I don't know if I describe this the best I can, but it's going to be something that obviously comes up in another video. It's a very simple subject, and if I have anything more to add, or I miss something, I could always bring it up in another video, passively at least, unless I want to make another video on this, part 2 or something, you know, like the vague concepts kind of thing. But not then again, no, not really. But then if I have anything to say, I can always add another video or whatever it may be. So if I have anything else to add on choice and that kind of thing, and illusions and such, I can mention another video. So thank you. And until next time, bye.